Hey guys, we are finally back with American Horror Story this week. If you guys haven't seen my video of Kaguya as well as Ishiki, I consider them as equal. You guys could definitely check it out. So we're back with a new episode for American Horror Story. This time it is episode 7 or episode 1, you could call it, Death Valley Part 2. The episode is titled Take Me to Your Leader, and we will definitely talk about the start of this part 2 season. But definitely we're gonna be describing the connection between Asylum as well as this part 2 season, Death Valley, because they do have aliens mentioned. But for now, roll the opening credits. So one thing we could talk about for the opening credits, that's another thing. If you guys haven't seen the breakdown that I did for the opening credits, I think out of all the opening credits, this one is very unique because it has like octopus and all these other, it looks like a bunch of hybrid things that were happening in the trailer. Now let's get back to the episode. So one thing, I'm changing the format for part 2, so I hope you guys like my new format for American Horror Story. I will be covering things much earlier for American Horror Story because we're almost down to the final parts of American Horror Story. But until then, those are the people that are going to be playing, some characters as well as people that we normally see in the episode. So Melon Merrill, played by Ashlyn Soper. Craig plays by some political figures. So American Horror Story always use political figures, right? So American Horror Story Death Valley. So the first thing we saw from the opening of the American Horror Story episode 7, Take Me to Your Leader, we flash forward back to 1954 to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we saw that this lady, which is like those typical 50s and 60s looks, cooking for her husband. She's the wife and she's cooking, and the son is playing around, and then as the son is playing around, we saw that this gigantic dust tornado is coming towards the house, and the tornado apparently started shaking the entire house and eventually abducted little Timmy, which is the boy's name. We didn't get the wife name, but basically little Timmy got abducted, and basically the mother's looking for him and yelling his name, Timmy, Timmy, Timmy. And then we saw that Timmy basically comes out on the other side of the house and basically started talking to the mom, basically saying that it's okay, mom, you just gotta take my hand. And then we saw his eyes basically is pure white, and basically his eyes went in the back of his head as he was talking to his mom and explaining that. And then we saw that the whole house was levitating inside. All the dishes and everything were like destroyed due to the whole rumble of the light beam that was hitting the house when the boy was being abducted. Then we cut to the opening credits, and then we flash forward to President Eisenhower playing golf. So we saw President Eisenhower playing golf, and one of the Secret Service men basically approached him and told him that, you know, the place that somewhere in Mexico, something has been breached, and it was a crash site, and they managed to barricade everything, so they would need him to come quickly to basically investigate. So President Eisenhower basically said, okay, gentlemen, just give me a moment, I'll be back. So they drove him to the crash site, which is very similar to like the Roswell incident, if you think about it. He opens the door and he basically started looking around, and he spoke to one of the Secret Service men. He said that, you know, has anyone seen what happened here? They were like, no, Mr. President, we've cleared everything out. It's just us that's in the Death Valley right now. So let's discuss. And then one of the guys that were like collecting the samples was like, hey, you guys need to come see this. And we saw that Lily Rave, which played in part 2, part 1 I mean, basically played as a new character, which is called Amelia Earhart. And basically she been missing for 20 years, and we saw all these different symbols on her back, and you know, they rushed to get close to her. And then President Eisenhower gave her the suit jacket that he was wearing, and he said, do you know who I am? She said, who are you? And she said, what's your name? She said, Amelia Earhart. And then they was like, please take her to like I would say the nearest US base. And they started, you know, analyzing and discussing like what has happened to her. At first, I guess she really, you know, started asking like, what year is this? Like, where am I? And then I guess he introduced himself and explained, you know, why are these things are even here. And she said, they was like, sir, it looks like she hasn't even aged at all. And she started explaining, and as she started explaining, it was like, no time for that, let's just take you to the base and we'll just, you know, discuss more what has happened. As well as President Eisenhower basically said, you know, just clear up everything so that way. So when they got to the base, on one end of the base they have Amelia Earhart, and then the other base they had the aliens. Now the aliens basically started explaining to you know, she started explaining, Amelia Earhart started explaining, she was like, I think Roosevelt was the president or something, and basically she said, you're not that, you're like Nick's she said that he was like, I'm President Eisenhower. And she was like, wait, that can't be, because, and then she started explaining that they were like, no, she's been gone 20 years ago, but how come she looks exactly the same? The doctors started checking her pulse as well as other activities in her body, and they saw that surprisingly she is like 2 months or 2 weeks pregnant. And they were like, that's impossible. And then the Eisenhower was like, but the person that I just saw in there was Amelia Earhart. There's no denying that. And at the same time, they started doing the autopsy on the alien body. They started opening the cavity chest, and for some reason inside the chest there was nothing there. Like, it was just like an empty vessel. And when they continue to open the top, there is like this plate, like hard alien, because you know the anatomy of the alien is way different than the human body. So it's like the alien could see, and it felt like Independence Day, where the aliens used like the body like a meat suit to like make weapons or something, and then something latched out of the alien body and attached itself to the face of the doctors like a symbiote. And it started like controlling it. It felt like the face hugger thing from Alien. And then we saw that this thing, the other doctor was trying to get it off the other doctor, and then when he took it off, the thing jumped right back to the other doctor's face, thus blowing their heads off. When I saw how their head was cleanly blown off, that reminded me of when Michael Langdon did that in Apocalypse. So I still having high hopes that we might get some tie-in to like Apocalypse tie-in, how the cooperative were formed as well, and how they created like Miss Mead and stuff, but this black and white part in the past is so amazing of how they captured it. It's amazing. And then at the end we started seeing more heads getting blown off, and we saw the lady that was in the first scene of the episode. She was being controlled and got to the point, and the Eisenhower was like, everybody put their guns down, lowered their fire, and he was like, you need to listen to, we're not the enemy, we're trying to understand what's been going on. But she was like, no, Mr. President, it is you that will be listening to us. And from that, we saw that the scene just stopped there, and they just stopped it where it was. So basically we're getting a past and future story in Death Valley. And then as we started seeing the ending close, she's just standing there in front of Eisenhower, and basically the scene stops there, and then the opening credits rolls out, and then we jump to like present day. So in the present day, we saw basically what we've been thinking about for a while. We saw some connection as like the ending basically explaining how they got to that point, and how the connection could like affect just majority of the people. So whatever that's going to be happening in the past will definitely affect the future of the episode. So I'm definitely excited to see what's going to be happening next. So we're going to be jumping into present day and what has occurred. So we open up to present day, and we basically meet up some university Ivy League college kids, and they basically one of the friends basically was waiting on the others just to have a get together. The first person that we have met, his name is Carl Cambon, and basically he's just a Princeton University Ivy League student. And then the second person that we've met is called Kendall Carr, and she's basically from I guess Princeton or Yale University or Howard. And then the second person we've met, he is from Princeton, is Troy Lloyd. And then lastly, the person we've met was Jamie Howard, and she is from Yale University. So I guess they're like good friends, and they just wanted to spend some time together over the summer. So they decided to go camping, and immediately the moment they got to the place, I guess Troy was like, wait, this is not the same camping site, the place that I picked out. There was like a pool there, and they was like, well, maybe it's back that way. And then they started smelling this like foul smell, and when they got closer, they saw like all these like dead cows, and they're like they split so cleanly, you could see the whole anatomy of the cows. And she went in to like go touch it to see what's going on, and then we saw the one of the cows open its eyes, and she got so freaked out. They all got freaked out, and they started driving to see if they could leave the premises of where they are. And then for some apparent reason, their car ended up not working. Even the that's what you get for not having your phone with you or anything. They just saw this beam of light just rush down upon the car while they couldn't move at all. And basically the light basically shined so bright on them that the moment they woke back up, they were all shifted into different position in the car, and then one of them gone missing. Now, after yelling and looking for where everybody go, the beam of light started getting lighter and lighter, and then it went on top of the car, like showing that it was getting the car high up in the ceiling. And then we saw that on when they woke up, it looked like nothing happened. We saw like tentacles, and we just like they got closer trying to power up back the car. We saw this little miniature version of the regular infamous gray aliens were approaching the car, and Jamie was like, push the car harder, let's get the heck out of here. So the next morning they got up, they went back to like their place, and the girls were Jamie and I guess Kendall basically explaining. She was like, this would not make sense. I would not wake up one day and be asexual and now I'm reproducing by myself. So apparently they all got pregnant. At first they thought it was just the girls, and then for some reason the other two guys that were partners end up realizing that they also got pregnant, which is just more of a shock because they didn't expect themselves to like realize that, because they use the meter thing when you're like pregnant as a woman to see if they were like pregnant or not, and they end up realizing it was true. So the episode ends right there, which was kind of funny, but then again we're just asking like what the heck is going on. Normally when you see aliens are impregnating not only females but males, we know that the aliens could have an ability where they could just use the host as like a nutrient source in order for them to like grow out of it. So when the time is right, they could just pop out their chest or anywhere in their body once they finish feeding the human nutrients, right? So I got a lot of Alien versus Predator type vibes, how they had the face huggers, which hugged the sacrificial people's face in order for it to like grow, which was pretty insane, right? So the episode 7, which is Take Me to Your Leader, ends there. Now we're going to be talking about American Horror Story, I would say prediction and connection to like other seasons. Now, one thing that I feel as if a lot of people rarely talk about is that the Asylum, I would say, connection between Double Feature as well as the aliens. So this was not the first time we have seen aliens. Back in 2011 or 2012, which was American Horror Story season 2 Asylum, aliens were depicted as either gods or like close to like god representation in the series, because they used to like abduct people and just use them and then bring them back, but they have to be close to death in order for them to save them, but they can't save them once they're like completely dead. From what Tate Walker and I forgot who else said, they also make mistakes too, so they're not fully perfect. That's why they do a lot of experiments, right? Another connection we could say that was an Asylum is the Nazi doctor as well as the chemist from part 1 of Red Tide. How they both goes to different towns and basically they use the town as like a giant lab experiment, and they concoct their experiment by using people and implanting people with the pills as well as other experiment that they use on animals, and then they're like a traveling pharmaceutical, I would say. They use the pills to enhance people's lives, but at the same time it destroys them at the same time. So that's why at the end of Red Tide we saw that the chemist was like, okay, I guess it's time for me to pack up, let's go to the next town, so that way we could definitely recreate what we did in this town. So they basically testing to see what's worked and what didn't work, so that way when they find the perfect suitable host, they could just create something even more crazier from the pills, right? So this was some of my connection with the aliens, right? So definitely, guys, if you like the video that I did, like and subscribe, leave your comment down below. I'll always read the comments, you know, negative or positive. But definitely I'm enjoying this part 2 season a lot. So can't wait for episode 8, and make sure you check the breakdown episode of episode 8 trailer in the next video. Bye bye.